In this part of the program, we'll briefly examine the 7 myths of the higher critics.
And here's myth number 1.
One of the first things we learned when we started this was that all but the most skeptical historians believed Jesus was a real person, even though when you come here you do not find any physical evidence.
It is good that Jennings admits that Jesus was a real person. Some have tried to make Jesus into a myth, but the evidence that Jesus lived in Judea in the first century is overwhelming. Jesus was a historical person recorded by Christian, Jewish, and pagan historians. In fact, there are many well-known non-Christian historians who mention Jesus. Tacitus, in his Annals, mentions that Christ was crucified under Pontius Pilate and gives detailed descriptions of Nero's persecutions, which are also alluded to several places in the New Testament. The correspondence between Pliny the Younger and the Roman Emperor Trajan corroborates the New Testament history, including the persecution of Christians under the Emperor Nero. Josephus, the first century Jewish historian, makes mention of Jesus, John the Baptist, and James, the brother of Jesus. Scholars note that the New Testament corroborates Josephus in minute detail. Keep in mind that Josephus wrote his history after the time of the New Testament. In other words, both sources were written independently, but both agree with each other. So Josephus testifies to the historical reliability of many passages in the New Testament.
So Joel, my question is, besides Paul, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John that lived in the day when Jesus lived, are there any other writers that wrote about Jesus back then?
Well, there are many writings from 1st and 2nd century Christians that were actually never recorded in the Bible, but they've been proven to be very reliable.
Other 1st and 2nd century writers who wrote about Jesus as the Son of God, the promised Messiah and the Lord of creation are Clement of Rome, the writer of the Epistle of Barnabas, Polycarp, a student of the Apostle John, Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, Irenaeus, the 2nd century Bishop of Lyons, Tertullian, a 2nd century apologist, and Clement, the 2nd century Bishop of Alexandria. Despite the overwhelming testimony from the early centuries that confirm the gospel stories, the higher critics continue to search for a historical Jesus. Contrary to what the liberals of the Jesus Seminar tell us, we have far more than likelihood and possibility to confirm the reliability of the gospel stories. We have substantial and authentic evidence that the Jesus of history is the same person revealed to us in the gospel accounts. They were reliable second-generation historians who were taught by the apostles, who were in turn alive during the ministry of Jesus.
When I was in Bible college, I learned that Jesus is a very real historical figure and that there are facts to very much prove that. And everybody involved in history surrounding him, like Pontius Pilate, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all of those were real people in real history. But when you talk about other religions, that a lot of times is myth. There's no proven fact. So with Jesus, he was a real figure in history.
Well, I agree. Christianity does definitely have these historical roots. These early Christians from the 1st and 2nd century would have these discussions with the pagans of the day. And so with that fact, we know that these early Christians knew that Jesus was a man and that he was truly God.
And there are so many sources that actually back up what's written in the New Testament.